Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
It's your brother Donal.
That's right, yeah.
Brothers of the Hopeful Elect coming back again. Sorry we did not get on for Think About It Thursday, but today we have a lesson for you guys on the Sabbath. And coincidentally enough, man, the topic is going to be about something concerning the Sabbath, right? The title of the video is going to be called Doing Good on the Sabbath, right? It's been brought to my attention that a lot of people don't know things that we're able to do on the Sabbath that are still, um, considered lawful, you know, and that's doing good. And we're going to go into the parameters of some of those things. Nothing that we're going to go on over today is going to be pushing the limit of the scriptures. Everything that we're going to bring up today is lawful to do on the Sabbath, and we have examples and we have word, uh, sanctified word in these scriptures, right? So, but without further ado, giving first all glory and honor to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We do so by way of his son, who is an instrument of salvation for the nation, who the world inwardly calls Jesus Christ. And so, uh, with that being said, man, let's get into it real quick. Let's go to the book of Matthew, right? I thought this was a well known scripture or passage, man, but some people might not know. So let's get into it real quick. This is Matthew chapter 12 and verse 2. And shalom to the brothers in the chat. Shalom, shalom. Right? Go ahead.
Matthew 12 and 2. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day.
So the Pharisees are accusing Christ and his disciples of breaking the Sabbath day, right? Because they seen them going through the corn and picking out some corn to eat because they were hungered, right? And they accuse Christ, and let's see what Christ says to them, right?
Verse 3. But he said unto them, Have ye not read what David did when he was hungered, and they were that were with him?
Right. Speaking of David, right?
Verse 4. How he entered into the house of God, and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests.
Con man. And so there was a instance where David was traveling, right? And the only place he ended up was with the priests. And it was on the Sabbath day, and he had nothing to eat, right? Even though it was unlawful for him to eat, it was still lawful for him to eat, if you understand what I'm saying. Because um, they went ahead and gave him that showbread, right? That showbread, which was supposed to be sacred bread, sanctified bread to the Most High. But Christ is bringing this up to say that, hey man, especially when the Most High's anointed is a hungered, right? Food should be provided, right? If you, I don't have this precept written down, but there's a precept going into Christ rolling up on the fig tree, right? And the food was supposed to be provided for Christ on that fig tree, and it wasn't. And so he cursed it and said, "Let no man eat from this tree, as long as this tree liveth," right? And so when you talk about David, when you talk about Christ, especially these two, when they're hungered and they're doing the work of the Lord, right? No matter what day it is, man, their belly should be full, right? But nonetheless, it's okay to do good on the Sabbath, and this is an example of giving somebody to eat when they're starving, man, when they're hungry. Because on the Sabbath day, also you got to think it's a day of rest, right? You're not really at rest if you're vexed all day because you're not willfully fasting, right? You're unwillfully fasting, and your stomach is pounding. You're warring with your spirit, warring with your mind, right? And it's one thing if you're fasting and you know what you got yourself into, but it's another if you're not fasting and you just sitting there starving. And you know how people get when they don't have no food in their system, they get mad and angry and all these things, right? All these spirits start to pop up, right? And so it's supposed to be a day of rest. So if that would lighten somebody's load, or give them some type of cheer, of course it's good to do good on the Sabbath in that circumstance, right? Next verse.
Matthew 12 and 5. Or have you not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple and are blameless?
Con,
Verse 6, but I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple.
Con is one greater temple, talking about himself, right? And not only himself, right? He's talking about us as well, because our bodies are temples, right? Keep reading.
Verse 7, but if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless.
Con, man. Let's see. I think it's right. Go ahead.
Verse 8, for the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day.
The Son is man is Lord even of the Sabbath day, right? Um, Forgot exactly which verse it is, but it was saying pretty much goes on to say that the Sabbath day was made for man and not the other way around, right? Man wasn't made for the Sabbath day, meaning, right? How much if you do all these things to keep the temple holy, right? How much more a man, right? Or the sons of God. You know what I'm saying? Because the Sabbath day was meant to give us rest. We weren't meant to give the Sabbath day rest, right? There's also another verse in here I wanted to go to, and we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into doing good on the Sabbath, right? This one right here. Oh man, what the heck? Go ahead and read that if you can.
Verse 11, and he said unto them, what man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep? And if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, he will not lay hold on it and lift it out.
Con, man, right? So on this one, it is bringing up animals, but I didn't bring it up for the purpose of animals. Brought it up for something else. Can you read the next verse for me?
Verse 12, how much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days.
Con, man, right? Talking about saving a sheep versus saving a man. Let's see here. I don't think it says it in Matthew. I think it talks about it in Mark and Luke, but it goes on to say, is it not good to save and to heal, right? How much better is a man than these animals? And so I bring up to say, what are some things that might come across where, it might cause you to do good on the Sabbath day, right? When it comes to saving or something like that, right? You might be going down the street or something. You might see a car accident with one of your brothers or sisters in it, right? You might know them, you might not, right? It would not be a sin on the Sabbath day to stop and to make sure your brothers and sisters are okay. They were in a car accident, right? I know some of us, we roll and be like, dang, if it wasn't the Sabbath, man, I'd stop. I'll help them out, right? But I'm letting you know right now, it would not be a sin to do so. That would also be considered doing good. Just like if your sheep were to fall into a ditch, right? And it would be okay for you to go and save your sheep, right?
Right.
Shalom to the brother Yeshaya.
Shalom.
Khan. But speaking of animals, right? Let's go to the book of Luke, chapter 13. Luke chapter 13 and 15. Luke chapter 13 and 15. So we see it's okay if somebody is starving on the Sabbath day, it's okay to provide them with food. Um, and even in the law, man, it talks about especially the gleaning fields, man, to leave some on there for the sojourners and stuff like that, right? And Christ knew this stuff too, but it's also okay to stop and help each other out if we see if somebody in a debacle, right, or if they're in distress. It's okay to help them out, right, on the Sabbath day. Um, there was one time where the brothers, we on the Sabbath day on the way coming back from camp, we seen some sisters, some Eve out there, with a tire situation, and we stopped to help them on the side of the highway to change their spare tire, right? Now the act that we did, I don't believe is against the laws of God. What we did come to the agreement was that we ended up finding out that they were on their way to celebrate a birthday or something like that. That was some folly, right? And we probably said, man, that was probably judgment. We could have let them carry out the judgment that was handed to them, right? Some people might say it's mean, some people might not. But there's a fine line when it comes to charity. Nonetheless, man, if definitely if you see your a brother or sister infringes on the side of the road on the Sabbath day, dealing with any of that stuff, man, it's okay to do good on the Sabbath, right? This is the book of Luke, chapter 13 and 15. Anybody want?
Lord, the Lord then answered him and said, Thou hypocrite, doth not each one of you on the Sabbath lose his ox or his ass from the stall and lead him away to watering?
Right? He says, right, man. So it coming when it comes to animals, right? And so people have this understanding that, sometimes, on the Sabbath day, we can't mess with our animals, this, that, and the third. But one thing about it is this, right? When you're taking care of animals that cannot fend for themselves, that cannot take care of themselves, you have an obligation, especially when they're in your possession. You have an obligation to make sure those animals are nourished as well, right? The Most High has put them in your care, right? And if I had to precept that, right, it says what is ordained. Husbandry is ordained. Livestock comes into husbandry, right? These things are ordained of God. It's okay. And so this is Christ right now exemplifying the fact that people do this on the Sabbath day. And one way we can understand that it's okay to do this, because he didn't say that doing this was against the law. He's bringing this up to validate why he is doing something, right? And so if you have a dog, right, if you want to set out some milk for your cat or anything like that, right, things that cannot fend for themselves, don't starve your dog, don't starve your cat all day. Go ahead and feed them, right? And I want to point out too that this is talking about loosing them and walking them to the wells. Now we know they didn't have no water at their house, so they probably had to go to the well. But one could argue, man, a simple walk around the neighborhood might not do harm either, right? For the well-being of the dog or whatever. So he's not in a cage all day on the Sabbath day, where and that gets into troubled waters. That goes into your own discretion, because it does say to shut the gates of your oxes and your asses and stuff like that on the Sabbath day. But you have to understand as well that the Sabbath day was meant to give us rest. And so the main point here is that, don't toe the line, right? And if you see that your dog is in distress or something like that and needs to be let out of the cage and he just won't start barking, right? And he's vexing everybody in the house, take him out for a quick second, put him right back in, right? That's again to your own your own discretion, right? But nonetheless, we can see here that it's okay to feed and water your animals, right? Um, But he goes on to say in this one as well, if you can do this for your animals, how much more, your brothers and your sisters? How much more is a man worth if you can do this for your animals? And so it's crazy, because people were doing these activities, but when it comes to actual human beings, we were putting more of a tighter leash on human beings, right? And the Sabbath was actually made for us, right? Let's see here.
The Bible, man, it lets you know, and it gives you the common sense on what's good, what's actually good, man. Doing the work of the Lord, healing, right, providing for, um, like the brother said, animals that can't provide for themselves, right? Somebody might be broken down. You might have a brother or a sister that you labor with or fellowship with. They might be broken down on the side of the road. They might need gas because they ran out of gas. You might be able to give them a lift, right, and drive out there and get them X, Y, and Z. But the Lord did not say anything about weighing out the options on taking a job that's gonna, make you work on the Sabbath for a higher salary, right?
Con.
You can't say because the higher salary is taking care of my family, that's doing good on the Sabbath day, because The Lord knows if you really need that job or not. The Lord knows if you're being forced to do it or not, or if you actually want to do it or for vain reasons or whatever. And that's why he's, letting you know what actually is the good on the Sabbath day that you're allowed to do, right? The good ultimately is for the benefit of someone else. It's not for the benefit of yourself, right? Or your desires, right? It's for something that needs to be handled right then and there, right?
Kind, kind, man. And I would encourage you, if you do have a job or a profession where you're on call or anything like that, right? Whether you're working in the hospital, if you're a surgeon or something like that, right? And it does cause for you to do one of these good acts on the Sabbath day, I would encourage you to work it out with your boss to not get paid for it to be voluntary work, and for you to handle what you need to handle and then skedaddle, right? Um, and that's if it falls into the doing good clause in the Bible, right? If you can pull out an example, or if you can pull out a precept supporting what you're going to be doing, right? Voluntarily, right? Don't put no time in, you know what I'm saying? Don't get that OT, right? Voluntarily, out of the goodness of your heart. If not, just don't go at all, right? This is the book of Acts, chapter 18 and 4. What else is good to do on the Sabbath?
And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks.
Now, this is Paul, right? This is this is crazy, right? Because we'll go to Christ, but this is Paul nonetheless, right? So, and Paul, he was a stickler for many things, right? A lot of people try to get around Paul, right? But we see here, and remember, Paul is the one who said, "What I but must by all means necessary." Paraphrasing, right? I must by all means keep this feast day, right? So we know Paul is acting within the law, and every synagogue he went to the synagogues on the Sabbath day to persuade the Jews and the Greeks. But why did he do this? Who was he following after? He says, "Follow me, for I follow after Christ." Right? So he got this from what? Following after Christ. Let's go to Luke chapter 4 and verse 16 really quick. Right? Luke 4 and 16.
Luke 4 and 16. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for the read.
Right? This is talking about Christ, right? Now, he said he went in. The point I want to highlight is as it was his custom. His custom. This wasn't a custom for, that's in the law or anything like that. Nonetheless, we can see that it was okay to do, but it was his custom that he made, right? That he was going to go teach in the synagogue every Sabbath day, right? And this is a custom that Paul even started following after, right? And a lot of brothers now have started following, have made it their custom on the Sabbath day to go out and to teach, and to what it say in Acts 18, to persuade the Jews and the Greeks, right? Why do we do this though, right? Because just like feeding that animal that can't take care for itself, we are considered or personified as animals ourselves, right? As lost sheep. And the lost sheep need to eat too, right? And so when we go out there as shepherds, as fishers of men, right? These lost sheep need to eat too. So with that being said, the work that we're doing, not only is it good work, kingdom building, right? But it's also feeding these sheep, just like it talked about in Luke, right? Let's go to Matthew chapter 4 and verse 4. You guys know where I'm headed. Go ahead.
Matthew 4 and verse 4. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God.
It says, man shall not live by bread alone, right? And so but we shall live after every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God, right? So it's important to understand that a lot of times this bread, man, the spiritual bread, is what needs to be given out as well, right? As food to the nation. Let me get one more real quick. Perfect, right? So we giving examples here, and keep in mind every example that we give you is Christ, right? Christ doing these things, right? So that spiritual bread, that spiritual food needs to be given out, right? Because you can never have too much of it, right? You can never, go a day without it. You shouldn't be. Blessed is he that readeth. Let's go to the book of John, chapter 4. John 4 and 10, right? John chapter 4 and verse number 10. Yeah. With the woman at the well. Go ahead.
John chapter 4, verse 10. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water.
Come on, man. So that bread of life and that living water, right, is okay to issue out. We give food and we walk our animals to the wells on the Sabbath day. How much more a man, right? And sometimes they're lost. Sometimes you got to lead them to that well. Sometimes they're starving and they don't understand that they're starving, right? Some people get starving, go into starvation, and they start hallucinating. You know what I'm saying? That's the mindset of our people right now. And it's okay to go out there and do good on the Sabbath, right? Why is this not working? There we go. Come, right? And so that is okay to do on the Sabbath day, right? To take care of our starving nation, right? And it's not me trying to make this up or trying to find a loophole. We are literally going to scriptures in the Bible where Christ is doing this stuff, and he is our ultimate example, right? Like I said, man, we weren't going to toe the line. We're giving real examples out here, right? Now, one thing I want to point out. All right, let's go back a few verses. Let's go back real quick to not that one. Is it this one? No, I want Acts 18 and 4. Slakia. Acts 18 and 4. There's one thing I want to point out. Watch this. Well, I could have went to Luke too. Go ahead and read this though.
Acts 18 and verse 4. And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks.
Right, man. So he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath. And I'll go ahead and read Luke one more time. Luke 4 and 16. 4 and 16. And I'm gonna put you guys on something really quick, right? Because a lot of people have this question. Go ahead.
Luke 4, chapter 6. Luke chapter 4 and verse 16. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for the read.
Right, man. So was Paul and Christ, were they sleeping at the synagogue the day before? Right? Like people used to sleep in line for Jordans. No, 9 times out of 10, they probably weren't. They had to travel to the synagogue, wherever it was. Right. So a lot of people answer, can we leave our houses on the Sabbath day? And the answer is yes. Right. Now, again, you do have to keep in mind these scriptures. Right. This is why sometimes some people decide not to go into these parameters, because some people are simple-minded and they'll take any occasion to sin. But man, it is okay to leave your house on a Sabbath day for good causes, for doing good, right? this is one of them, like going to the synagogue, whether you're going to go to a Sabbath service, right? If you have a congregation, you'll have a school. If you have a church, right, you can go. If you want to go visit brothers at camp, things like that, man, is okay to do. You're allowed to travel on the Sabbath. Also, watch this, right? Let's go to Acts 16 and 13. Since we're talking about traveling, how far can we go? How far can we go from our house? Is it a Sabbath day's journey? Right? Um, let's go to Acts 16 and 13. Right? Brought this up the other day. This is our brother Paul, right? Can you read that for me?
The book of Acts, chapter 16 and verse 13. And on the Sabbath day, we went out of the city by a riverside where
Right. He
prayer,
says on the Sabbath day, they went where?
we went out of the city by a riverside.
They went out of the city. They traveled out of the city on to the riverside, right? They're traveling right here, right? They weren't just sitting in their house, but what were they doing? Keep reading.
Where prayer was wont to be made, and we sat down and spake unto the women which resorted thither.
Right, man. So they went out where prayer was wont to be made. So if you know you're going to somewhere where it's going to be holy and holy conversation is going to be there, right? It is okay. I wanted to make this, I wanted to point out something as well, man. If somebody wanted to go to the riverside to meditate, to prayer, right? Because the Most High has created all things. He created nature, and a lot of it is beautiful and soothing, right? Especially a river. If you ever been out to a river, if you ever been out to a creek, man, and just been out there in the nature, right? If you think about it, Christ always walked off. Not saying to the river or anything like that, but he always walked off in the midst of the trees and stuff like that, where you might feel alone but comforted at the same time, where prayer could be made. But also right here, spake unto the women that resorted thither. You know, sometimes you go out in the midst, maybe not even on the Sabbath day, but you go out into the midst and you find some people, might not be women, but the conversation just starts to bring up about, maybe you have your fringes on, they notice your fringes, or something about the truth, right? You just start talking about the truth, right? That could take place, right? You never know, man. If you have a lake near you or something like that with picnic tables, and you just want to go out there, open your Bible, and meditate, right? That's fine as well, right? So not just at the synagogue, but even at holy places, right? So when you look at the corners, the street corners that we go on, things like that, right? But one thing I wanted to make a point here was the fact that Paul was and them traveled next to a riverside, man. How beautiful would that be to go travel towards God's creation, a riverside, and how soothing would that be to meditate there, right? And to have holy conversation. Because what are we commanded to do on the Sabbath day? We're commanded to gather together, assembly, right? A holy convocation, man, to gather to be with our people, right? And so that's another great way to do good on the Sabbath day, right? I got like two more precepts real quick, and then that'll wrap this up for us, man. If brothers have any precepts, um let me know. But going to second Edris really quick. Let's go to second Edris 6 and 59. 6 and 59. Speaking about the riverside, right? Go ahead.
Second Ezra 6 and 59. If the world now be made for our sakes,
The what?
if the world now be made for our sakes,
Right, keep reading.
why do we not possess an inheritance with the world?
Right, man. How long shall this endure? Right. But the point here I want to make is the fact that the world was made for our sakes. We see that in several verses throughout the Bible that the world was created for our sakes, i.e., the Israelites. Right. Real quick, I want to highlight this word sakes right here. Right. The world was made for our sakes. Boom, 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 boom. It's probably gonna take me out of the screen. Oh, it didn't. All right, cool. I'll take it. So let's see what this definition of sakes is, right? What does sake mean? Right? Sake. Read the first one for me and then read the second one for me too.
The definition of sake, noun. Definition number one, for the purpose of, in the interest of, in order to achieve or preserve.
Right, man. The purpose of, the interest of, or in order to achieve or to preserve, right? It makes sense. Christ, I mean, God made the world to preserve the Israelites, right? Everything he created within the world was to help us to preserve ourselves, right? He created with our best interests at hand, right? Everything that he created was for our interest and for our purpose, for us to be able to live off of these things and to operate within these things, right? Read the definition number two.
Definition number two, out of consideration for or in order to help someone.
Right. He created the world to help us because he was considerate enough for us, right? Um, let's see here. Read some of these synonyms for me, right? That are in these bowls.
Synonym, um, cause, purpose, reason, aim, end, objective, object, benefit,
Go.
advantage,
It
good.
says benefit, right? Benefit for our benefits, right? Right? The world was made for our benefit. So that river that he created was made for us to benefit from it, right? That running water, right? Not only is it good for water, but also, um, and a lot of people are tapping into their mental health today, you know what I'm saying? But it's also meant uh to meditate by, right? You hear the people always talk about the rushing of the waves and stuff like that, and looking at the current, man. The Most High, he's not dumb, man. He knows how he was creating creation, right? And when he created these things, man, he didn't mean for us to take them and worship them, but he definitely made it to show his majesty, right? His the wonderful works, right? And these things are good to be around, right? Another one is advantage, right? We have an advantage for as being Israelites because the world was made for our sakes, right? People always talk about being in tune with the sun and grounding and stuff like that. All that stuff might have some actuality to it, but again, man, you gotta remember to take these things with a grain of salt and don't make them a master, right? That where you're giving unto them, making them an idol, right? But it's okay to be in tune with nature to an extent, right? Because he made it for what? Our sakes, right? That sun gives us vitamins, right? The ground gives us vitamins that we come from, things like that, right? For our well-being, welfare, right? For our well-being, right? Not only just our, our every, not like for health reasons like water, but for our mental health as well, our welfare as well, right? And gain things that we can use these things to gain off of, right? And so I like that definition for sakes, and understand that the world was made for our sakes, man. A lot of people don't know that Paul traveled near the riverside, man. And I'm led to believe that was a beautiful sight to see right there, man. Imagine if brothers and sisters was having camp next to the riverside, right? You know what I'm saying? That would be kind of beautiful. You got the picnic tables out there. You got the waters in the back flowing, right? And you out there just teaching, having a good old time, almost like Feast of Tabernacles setup or something like that, man. It's a beautiful thing, right? But all these examples were examples that were brought about on the Sabbath day, right? And I made sure to pull these points that these things were being done on the Sabbath day, so that brothers and sisters know that it was being done and that it's okay to do good on the Sabbath, right? As long as you're keeping it holy, right? We're not saying, hey, look, go to the riverside so you can fish, right? That is not allowed, right? Fishing would be like hunting, and hunting and killing would not be allowed, right? Just for recreation, that's not allowed. So we're not saying that to travel to another city to go party, right? Yeah, you got your best friend has a wedding and you want to go to at least make the wedding reception, right? That's not what it's about. You know what I'm saying? And so as long as everything is taken within context and you're doing these things for the good of our nation, for the good of the kingdom, right? These things are allowed to do on the Sabbath day. Again, you got to fight your own salvation with fear and trembling, of course. You got to rightfully divide this the word of truth, right? And you have to be circumcised in the heart to actually take advantage of doing good on the Sabbath. Why do I say that? Because if you're not, man, the Most High, He will see you and He will judge you for your actions, right? Whether they're sincere or not. So make sure you get circumcised of the heart. Make sure you actually got these things, these laws and commandments in your heart. Not only that, the faith of Christ Jesus, right? And that comforter will never lead you astray, right? Pray and fast before making any decision, right? And always study, right? You can never study enough, but nonetheless, this was just to give an exhortation and to give examples of things being done that's good on the Sabbath. Why? Because he says that his burden is light, his yoke is easy, right? These things should not be grievous to us to keep. So me personally, I know a lot of people put heavy leashes and heavy yokes on the Sabbath day, right? And it's the Sabbath day was made to give us rest, and I don't think people understand the things that we're allowed to do in righteousness on the Sabbath day, and this video was just to highlight some of those things. But Khan, you brothers got anything?
I want to read one precept.
Khan, you want me to go to it?
You don't got to. I got it right here on my sword. Um, it's the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7 and verse 16. And it says, be not righteous over much, neither make thyself over wise. Why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Right. And I know that, like you mentioned, a lot of times people don't understand that there are righteous, lawful things that we can do on the Sabbath. So people have to understand that when you see the accounts of Christ, like the brother Denal said earlier, you know, he was our prime example of things that we could do that didn't break the law. It's lawful to do good on the Sabbath. You know what I'm saying? So if you're on your way to camp and you see an Israelite sister or, you know, Israelite brother, and you see their car is on top of them, don't look at it and be like, Sabbath day, I ain't supposed to be doing no work. You know what I'm saying? And drive right past them. Man, get out and help them folks, man, because at the end of the day, it's lawful to do good on the Sabbath. You're not going out your way looking for work to do. It just so happened to find you, and just be a blessing. The Lord could use you to help them out of that. Bakan.
Con, man, you know the book of James talks about faith and works, right? You know, you can't be seeing this on the side of the road, roll down your window and scream out the window, the Lord is gonna be with you, sister, right? You know, just like James talks about, you can have that faith that the Lord is going to be with you, right? But if they come to you and they're hungered and you say, man, the Lord's going to be with you, and you have food and you don't give it, right? You'll be judged for that. You know what I'm saying? If you see if you out and about, man, whatever, you go into the street corners to teach or something like that, and you see the police and they got guns aimed at your brother, like a George Floyd situation, man, it's okay to intervene in that as well, right? So a lot of times, you know, people skip over the fact that faith without works includes the protecting and the preservation of our nation and being there for our nation, right? Loving your brother, um, uh, uh, placing your life on the line for your brother. All these things are good to do on the Sabbath day as well, right? Because we see that with the Maccabees, right? How at first they didn't, and then they did fight on the Sabbath day to preserve the nation, right? To lay their life on the line for the nation. They were doing good on the Sabbath. But Brother Azrael, you got anything?
Nah.
Man, that has been a short little video, not too long. I hope you guys appreciated it. If you guys got any questions or scenarios or anything like that about the Sabbath day, don't hesitate to DM us. Remember, if you're not gathering, you're scattering. We are the hopeful elect, giving all honor and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We do so by way of his son, who is an instrument of salvation for the nation. And we say shalom, Shabbat shalom. Till next time.
Shalom.
Shalom.